Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Raman Kalyan. I'm on the Microsoft 365 product marketing team. And I'm excited to be here with my colleague and friend, Tala Mir, who is the principal program manager on our insider risk management engineering team. And we're going to talk to you today about insider risk management from Microsoft 365 that's helping organizations worldwide intelligently investigate and take action on insider risk. And Tala, I remember a couple of years ago when we first met, we were having a conversation with your old boss, Brett Arsenal, about what kept him up at night. And I was surprised to hear that it was insiders at Microsoft, because from my perspective, going into that conversation, I was thinking that it was, external adversaries, whether it be nation state hacking or malware or phishing or something like that. But he said that really it was insiders like this these people here, not working for Microsoft, but working for another organization, a large car manufacturer, and they stole information by just emailing it to themselves, intellectual property, with the subject line, "You sly dog, you," hence why it's called the Sly Dog Gang. And this is an interesting case in that we've got both a malicious risk where they've taken intellectual property and then left the organization, but an inadvertent risk where you've got, the only way the car manufacturer found out about this was it was inadvertently leaked from the competitor to whom they went.
That's right. And if you really sort of step back and look at this is really one of the most common insider risks that companies face today, which is departing employee data theft.
Yeah.
So when people leave an organization, either intentionally with malicious objectives in mind, or with really inadvertent, or think of it as sort of benign reasons, right? You want to take some content with you because you have sentimental attachments to a project that you worked on. Or we've even seen cases from customers that want to take content with them because they feel like they have there's such loyalty towards the company that if they reached out after the fact, they still want to provide support and have all the documents with them to do
right.
that. This case, on the other hand, was an explicit example of somebody with intent to cause harm, to steal intellectual property, go to a competitor and take a leg up.
Yeah, but that's not, there's tons of other types of risks as well, right? There's a broad range of risks and violations from insiders. Whether you have IP theft, you've also got, leaks of sensitive data, inadvertent or malicious. You got people that are, corporate sabotage, corporate, espionage. You've also got workplace harassment type of violations. People inappropriately sharing something in communications that they shouldn't be. And so as we think about that, what we've heard over the last 2 years since we've been on this journey together is that 90% of organizations that, around the world feel vulnerable to insider threats. And they're concerned both about the malicious threats as well as the inadvertent threats. However, as we look at what are some of the solutions that organizations are using to try to combat insider threats, most often they're using solutions that are not purposeful built for insider threat detection or remediation. They're using this hodgepodge of solutions such as user behavior analytics, or combined with a user activity monitoring agent that they need to actually capture the signals, or data loss prevention. And it results in this fractured approach. And I know that you explored a number of these options at Microsoft until we built our own solution, upon which insider risk management is born from. What was some of the bigger challenges that you saw here?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? That question comes up from customers all the time as well. Before we dig into that, I think there's two things that's important to keep in mind when you think about insider risk management, right? To have an effective program to manage insider risks, you need one diverse set of data for which you can curate and kind of reason over. So that's number one. And number two, you have to acknowledge the fact that unlike traditional security, to manage the risk with insider threats, you have to be able to collaborate effectively beyond security. So with your human resources department, with your legal department, with your compliance department, with your privacy department. So when you take that into account, and you step back and look at the technology stack that most organizations have, you quickly find out that what we have, you can't really, to your point, just put that together, hodgepodge some things together, glue it together, and expect it to be an effective insider risk management solution.
Yeah.
So as an example, let's dig into this a little bit. Traditionally, you see companies that have a piece of technology called a UEBA or a SIM or a security analytics platform, right? Where the idea is you have this magic black box, you're supposed to go pipe all the signals into it and do some sort of orchestration, and it gives you these alerts. That's expensive to do. It's not a purpose-built solution. You have to write all these custom rules on top of it. It's very sort of security-driven. You might not have a lot of the context that you need to effectively manage the risk with the information that's available in those systems. So that's number one. The other end of the problem that you see are sort of agent-based approaches, right? So a UAM type solution, user activity monitoring, where you might take an agent, deploy it on your important assets, and you collect these signals. Or DLP, where you have some agents that you deploy to try to manage either the audit of data loss or the prevention of data loss.
Right.
Those are not going to be effective because they're very limited to what you see on the endpoint. They're costly to do, and they're very focused on looking at data loss, where, as you and I just talked about, insider risk spans beyond data loss into sabotage and physical concerns and fraud and other areas like that.
Yeah. And to your point, like, context is key, right? So I could certainly write a number of rules for data loss prevention to say, hey, if somebody's trying to take sensitive data from my organization and share it on email, flag it. But what if they actually take sensitive data, put it on their desktop, do some sort of renaming, try to obfuscate that data, and then share it via some other situation? Now, how do you write a rule for that? Now, if you try to write a rule for that, you have multiple rules. Now you're trying to manage multiple rules, multiple signals. You end up with not only alert fatigue, but a signal to noise ratio that's going to be significantly, resulting in poor identification of risk.
Yeah, and I think that's what drilling into rum for a little bit, right? This context thing is absolutely critical. And when you think about context, you need context on the individual's actions, the person that you're actually potentially looking to build a profile around, build this sort of a risk profile around. And when you look at this data loss prevention type tools, UAM type tools, they're really focused on the transaction of what actually took place versus sort of bubbling up and looking at the actual individual risk, which you really have to focus in on to be able to better mitigate that risk that you have.
Yeah. And so I think, one of the things that I learned from you was really designing an intelligent insider risk solution requires, a lot of effort, not only on the technology side, but also requires a lot of collaboration across different stakeholders within the organization.
That's right. So we talked about this just briefly a while ago, but security is important, right?
Yeah.
The curation of signals, you do a lot of the identification of risks, but then you have to partner with HR. Why? Because HR is the one that really defines the kind of culture that you have in place and what is and is not acceptable level of program's extent that it can go into. Legal is important because the kind of individuals that you're looking at, you're bound to them through employment law. So the kinds of detections that you might put in place for your employees in the US could differ dramatically from the kinds of detections you do for your employees in Germany versus Japan versus other parts of the world. And last, certainly not least, compliance and privacy. How do you take that into account as you're building out your program so you're not compromising regulatory requirements that you have or other policies that you need to abide by in your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so before we get into the demo, which is going to be, I'm excited to see a lot of the new things that you have on dock here. Insider risk management for Microsoft 365, we launched this in February of this year. It's been a great journey and we're excited about it. Customers are certainly tell us that some of the things that they're excited about is the ability to utilize some of the built-in machine learning templates that we have that require no agents to be deployed, no scripting to be created to actually get the signals and start understanding and identifying hidden risk patterns within your organization. We just talked about privacy. Privacy is built into the solution, right? Pseudo-anonymization. These are employees that you're dealing with. You want to make sure that that you are respecting their privacy rights as well as conforming and being compliant with regulatory requirements and employment laws in your region. And then finally, to your point, we've got stakeholders across the organization and having end-to-end investigation workflows is important to address these risks in a well-coordinated fashion. And so today, I'd love for you to now go through a demo. I know that we have some new investigation capabilities, some new templates, some new insights. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, let's do it, Roman. So Roman, this is our insider risk management dashboard. Super excited, like I said, to get into some of the new features that we have. So let's do a quick overview of the whole solution. So this here is our home screen. You can see, for example, we talked about anonymization and privacy being key. So all the usernames here are anonymized. This has been there since the GA. And it's important to kind of call out the feedback that we're getting from customers that this isn't just about privacy, it's also about bias control. Yeah. Because again, you're talking about internal employees and contractors. So in this case, Roman, if I was working at Contoso Electronics and I'm seeing an alert that pop up for you and I knew it was you, I'm not even going to do the due diligence. I'm going to escalate that immediately, man. But let's look at a day in the life of kind of setting up one of these policies and what that looks like. Because as you and I talked about earlier today, ease of use is absolutely critical. We've heard this from our customers over and over. It's complicated to set up these, UEBA, UAM, SIM type solutions and get the right sort of orchestration happening and the signals getting fed in. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to get things started.
Awesome.
So you go to the policies page. I have some policies already set up, but I'm going to show you how to create a brand new policy. So I go to create policy. And immediately what you notice is a bunch of these policy templates that are available. So remember earlier on, we talked about insider risk is really this ocean of different types of risks that you can come across. And one of the biggest mistakes that people can make is to try to boil that ocean. It's not going to work. So you have to kind of compartmentalize, prioritize, and then tackle the kind of risks that you care about. There's data theft, data leaks, sabotage type issues with security policy violations. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to call
it. And I see here, Tala, you've got some other ones that we just introduced, like for example, disgruntled employees, priority users, right?
Yeah,
this is a way for you to get more granular.
That's exactly right. So even data leak can have different flavors of it, right? So one of insider risk is a game of indicators. The more you have, the more proactive you could be in identifying risks. And one of the leading indicators of insider risk is actually poor sentiment. So if you have employees, contractors, business guests that are disgruntled, that could be a leading indicator that they're about to potentially cause some harm. So super excited about this that we launched just about 2 months back is this idea of capturing disgruntlement triggers. So with our HR connector now, you can actually feed in data like somebody getting a poor performance review or getting demotion or being put on some sort of a performance improvement plan. All of those research shows over and over again are actually leading indicators to somebody being disgruntled. So you can actually use that, feed that in if you choose, and use that to build out data leak policies that are very specific to looking at disgruntled users. Awesome. Same thing with priority users. We heard about this from customers as well, that not all of their user base is exactly the same. And typically it's broken up into sort of two categories, right? You can have priority users that are high value or high risk, right? So things like HR watch lists, for example, or high valued users that have the ability to cause a lot of damage because they have access to a lot of the crown jewels in your organization. So maybe you want to look at more strict policies for those individuals as opposed to the rest of your population. So now you can get into that fine-grained policy setup, all in an effort to help you produce more signal and less noise.
Nice.
So let's start with, we'll pick data leak by disgruntled employees since we're just talking about that. I'll use that template. I'll call it test, click next. The first thing you get to use is define the users or the groups that you want to target. Now, of course, you can choose a selection of groups or users from your Azure Active Directory, or in this case, just check this box and everybody comes in scope automatically.
Yep.
Next is the content you want to prioritize. This gives you the ability to say, if certain content defined by locations such as SharePoint sites, sensitive information types that they might contain, or sensitive labels that they might have are considered higher priority than not for that specific policy. For example, maybe this is a policy for your research and research department, research and development group, and they're working on some super secret project, and all the files for those projects have certain labels on them, for example. So now you can mark that, define that in the policy. And what the system does is it looks out for any time that user in scope touches content with that type of an identifier, and it automatically ranks that higher because you told it that that's a priority content.
Nice.
So now let's look at the indicators. So as I said, insider risk management is a game of indicators. And one of the hardest things for our customers to do is to be able to, set up those scripts, set up those data feeds, pull the data in, normalize it, all that stuff. That's significant overload for your IT department.
Yeah.
And with the insider risk management solution, it's literally as easy as a check of a box. That's it. So what you see at the top are all these office indicators that we can pull in. So if you check off downloading content from SharePoint, then we can go in your Microsoft 365 tenant, go into your audit, and then pull in that content and orchestrate over it. Now, it is important for me to stress that it has to be a checkbox because you're always in control. So you get to choose which indicators you want to use that align with your risk appetite and your cultural considerations, and to build that sort of holistic insider risk management program. The system will work regardless of how many or how few indicators you let it choose because it's built on a progressive detector. The more information it has, obviously the richer context it can provide, but it can work off a few indicators as well. It's not going to be a problem. But the thing I'm really excited about is the device indicators. So this is where you traditionally have to worry about taking these agents and deploying these agents on your machines, and now you're getting all these signals from them. If you have the breadth and depth of Microsoft 365, it's quite literally a check of a box. So if you say, I want to look at people printing documents or copying across the USB, you check that off, and everything happens for you behind the scenes. We'll get everything orchestrated. The pipe is all there. The information comes into your tenant from your endpoint, and we can orchestrate on that.
That's awesome. So on Windows 10, all I have to do is check this box, no endpoint agent to deploy, which also, of course, has performance degradation if you're deploying all these agents. Now you don't have an agent to deploy, and you can just pick, a number of these signals that you want.
That's exactly right. Not only is the performance degradation such a huge thing for our customers and their IT departments, but there's another benefit as well, which is that now you have reduced the attack surface. As you know, the more agents you deploy on the endpoint, the more inadvertently you're actually increasing the attack surface, because when there's vulnerabilities that are found in those agents, that in turn compromises your environment. So not only is it great from an overall security posture of your environment, it's great from performance management, and it's an amazing, amazing thing from an IT overall cost of management point of view, because there's nothing new to manage.
That's awesome. And I see that we're going beyond Office 365 and Windows 10 endpoints to actually now introducing physical access indicators.
Yeah, super excited about this. This is something we're announcing at Ignite right now. So this is how we're transcending beyond the digital footprint into the physical footprint as well. So with the physical badging connector that we have available today, regardless of what badging system that you're using, if you choose to feed that in, we can also orchestrate and try to identify signals such as somebody trying to access your physical building after their digital accounts have been shut off, or trying to access sensitive physical assets and getting failed attempts at that, which could be an indicator of potential sabotage that's about to happen. Last thing I'll call out here, Ron, before we move on is, we shipped with, at GA, we shipped with out-of-the-box thresholds that Microsoft recommends, but now you have the ability with a single slide of a toggle to customize that to your heart's content. So different organizations have different risk appetites. As I mentioned before, now you can align that risk appetite to the kinds of detectors that are built. So you can define what is the threshold that has to be met for something to be considered low, medium, or high impact to the risk score.
That's awesome, man.
So with that, policy time frame is another indicator that you have complete control over. I'll skip over that in the interest of brevity here. You click next, submit, and that's it. That's all you got to do. No complicated scripts, no agents to deploy. You're good to go. And there's our policy right there.
Sweet. Voila, like Christophe likes to say.
That's right. Voila, indeed. Now let's kind of turn over and look at what an actual case might look like. So let's say you're at day 100, you're seeing a couple of cases come in that you're investigating. So I want to use that as an opportunity to highlight some of the new features that we're announcing at Ignite as well. So I'll go into our same old case that we've been talking about for a while now, case 884. Open that up. I get into my quick overview of the case. We still have our amazing macro exploration, as we like to call it, which is this user 360. I can span back quite a bit in time and see what's going on with this user. That's all available there. Another thing that we announced just a couple of months ago at Inspire was this ability for you to now provide feedback. This is something I'm personally super excited about with all the work that we're doing behind the scenes with ML and our research work there. This is information that's starting to build that pipe for us so we can get smarter and smarter and start to fine tune these detections specifically for your organization.
Awesome.
But a new thing that we're announcing as part of Ignite is this Activity Explorer. So not only do we have this ability to give you this macro exploration of what's going on in the environment and with that potential risky user that can go back months, literally, but we can give you micro explorations as well and dig into specific minutes and seconds and tell you what's going on with that user when they created a file, downloaded a file, shared a file, so on and so forth. Super excited about this ability and the kind of opportunity it opens up for your investigation capabilities. We always had Content Explorer that's still available today. Our customers tell us how important this is in its effort to provide you that deep context, that rich context, so you can understand what's going on with that user. Of course, that content's all available to you. You could still escalate that investigation to advanced e-discovery in the case that this needs to turn into a litigation or possible law enforcement escalation. Yeah. But two new things that we're super excited about here is the ability to create a Microsoft Teams team. We talked about how critical it is for collaboration to be built into these solutions. And the fact that you have to collaborate with human resources and legal, we thought, why not give you the ability to integrate and spin up a Microsoft Teams team that gives you a secure workspace for you to do all your collaboration and all your note-taking and evidence gathering that you need to do. So you can do that right out of the box. And secondly, also super excited about this ability to integrate with Power Automation now. The Power Platform now gives you the ability to automate some of these workflows where you might have to notify a user that they're under scope, or notify the manager, or maybe initiate a conversation with a manager to verify if what you observed in your system is in line with expected duties or something more nefarious might be happening. And last, certainly not least, I'll just kind of touch on this a little bit. We had the integration with ServiceNow that we announced back at Ignite, so you can integrate with your SOAR platform like ServiceNow for ticketing and whatnot. And of course, we have the ability to also integrate with your SIM, such as Sentinel, with the ability to export alerts that we also announced at Inspire. So super, super excited with some of the stuff that we're pushing out the door based on the feedback, the tremendous feedback that we've been getting from our customers.
That's awesome, man. Tons of great value. We've introduced this Ignite, and we've come a long way in our journey in just a few short months, from February GA to now, September Ignite. And I'm looking forward to what's coming next, but I'm certainly very excited to see how our customers are going to utilize these capabilities to help them identify risks and remediate them within their organization. Wow, so that was a lot of great information from Tala. And I am super excited to see how our customers worldwide are going to start leveraging the capabilities we showed today to help them identify and remediate insider risks within their organization. For those of you watching, there are several ways that you can start leveraging insider risk within your own tenant. First and foremost, if you have an E5 license, you can just go to compliance.microsoft.com and start implementing policies for insider risk. You saw how easy it was. If you don't have E5, we have an E5 trial that you can sign up for. And of course, to get more information about these features today, we have a blog that we released at aka.ms/insider risk ignite. And with that, thank you so much for watching.